Hey there, I had a quick thought around belief, about the can-do attitude, and it has to do with George Lucas. I was doing training all day today, and now I'm at the hotel room, and what better thing to do than to maybe pour some inspiration into you.
You already know.
My passion and my mission to help you unleash your greatness within. My heart goes out to the underdogs that's on their way. If you think you can go from good to great, okay, let's motivate. Greatnesswithin.com. TJ Hoisington. Greatnesswithin.com. Oh, if you dreaming it, believe in it, work hard for it, and in the process serve others in a positive way. Think you can do it.
So I don't know if you followed me long or not when you watch this, but one of my favorite quotes of all time is by George Lucas, who said, "We are all living in cages with the doors wide open." I love that. And so I thought I would just share a little bit of his story with you. You know, I don't know if you can see this. There, you can sort of see copies of it. But, you know, in my journal from, you can maybe see let's see, roughly July 9th of the year 2000. And I studied George Lucas, and I thought I would just tell you his story, because when I say unleash your greatness within, right, I mean it at the core, and a lot of it has to do with George Lucas. Actually, early on, I studied him, and I studied the failures that he had, and I studied the mishaps that he had as well, but he never gave up on his dream. And I'm going to tell you something: if you never give up on your dream, if you never give up on your goal won't give up on you. The key is having the desire so big that you're not going to give up after one or two setbacks. You're going to keep going until. And that's what successful people do, is they keep going until they get the result that they're seeking. All right, so let me just quickly tell you George Lucas's story, because you see, I copied this from my journal because several years ago, I started carrying this around with me. You know, I have a binder. Here, hold on. I have my favorite binder that I travel with, and I have all kinds of stories and things that I often refer to. And several years ago, I copied my journal, so I wouldn't have to bring my whole journal around. I copied, you know, George Lucas's story in my journal, and I thought tonight I would just share you his story, because it is amazing. I mean, here's a guy that had mishap after mishap after mishap, which I'm not going to get into tonight, but he just never gave up on his goal. And when other people couldn't see the vision, that didn't matter. He saw the vision. All right? So this is critical. So let me just read a couple things in here. He told his father in his 20s that he would be a millionaire by the time he was 30 years old. Boy, did he do that. Let me tell you. And by the way, you don't have to be a fan of Star Wars to understand the spirit of what I'm sharing with you. I mean, this is just amazing. By May 1973, George had filled out 13 pages and presented those 13 pages of a movie script to the executives at United Artists, who frowned at the opening sentence. Would you like to know what the opening sentence read like? I mean, think about it. This is before Star Wars even came out. Nobody even understood the concept of Star Wars at that point. And here was his opening sentence as he stood in front of these executives. Quote, "The story of Mace Windu, a revered Jedi Bendu, of a Poochie who was related to Oopsie C.J. Thape, Padawan learner to the famed Jedi." What do you think the executives did? They said, "What kind of language are you speaking? What is that?" Anyway, they frowned on the idea, and they rejected the idea of Star Wars that he had. So then George Lucas took it to Universal Studios, and they rejected it as well. However, one executive, Alan Ladd Jr., was interested and gave George $15,000 to finish the movie script. Unbelievable. He put himself in a bedroom in his house, and he wrote 8 hours per day, 5 days per week. Unbelievable. You know, when he did Star Wars, he wanted to use no-name actors, and there were problems from the beginning. I mean, if you've studied anything about Star Wars, the filming of that first movie that they came out with, A New Hope, I tell you what, it was not pretty. People got hurt, people got sick, some people got hospitalized. It was just amazing the amount of problems there were. But on May 25th, 1977, all the frustration had ended. This was the day the film opened. Earlier that day, George delivered the last reel of film into the courier's hands. That evening, he left the studio to get something to eat near a famous theater called Mann's Chinese Theater in LA. In front of the theater, George said, it was like a mob scene. One lane of traffic was blocked off. There were police everywhere. There were limousines. And there were lines in front of the theater 8 people wide, going both ways around the block. He said, my gosh, I added gosh there. What is going on here? He thought. It must be a premiere or something. And then he said he looked up at the marquee and it was Star Wars. At the restaurant, he sat there at the window and he stared, watching the crowds go into the theater. Imagine that feeling. Oh my gosh. Time magazine said that it was the year's best movie. Movie owners had to clear the theaters after each movie because people just kept sitting there. One theater called Avco Theater that seats 1,000 people hired 60 extra staff members the first week, and they had to turn away 5,000 people. He said, this isn't a snowball, the owner said. This is an avalanche. The soundtrack sold over 1 million copies in the United States alone, and that was at a time when soundtracks didn't sell. Fox, unfortunately, had sold George all the rights because they didn't think anything would come of the movie. Unbelievable belief, right? Star Wars, in the end, was nominated for 10 Oscars at the 1978 Academy Awards, and it won 6 of them. George had built a fortune of $100 million in 3 years. And you know what? You'll remember in Empire Strikes Back when Luke Skywalker is in the jungle where Yoda was living at the time, learning the Jedi way. And at one point, Yoda was teaching Luke Skywalker how to use the Force to lift his spaceship out of the swamp. So he tried over and over and over, and he said, I can't do it. And then all of a sudden the music comes on, and Yoda closes his eyes. And then he starts to lift this plane out of the water and over to dry land. Luke Skywalker watches this, and Luke comes up to Yoda afterwards and says, how did you do that? How is that possible? And Yoda said back to him, and I know I'm not getting the words exactly right, but Yoda said back to him, the reason you weren't able to do it is because you didn't believe. My message to you is that if you don't give up on your dreams won't give up on you. When I say unleash your greatness within, I mean go after it until you succeed. Most people give up too early. So my hope for you is that you will have a deeper belief in yourself, that you'll believe in the unknown, that you'll believe in the unseeable, in the invisible. Believe in just a simple idea and then go to work to make it a reality without giving up. That is how you unleash your greatness within. And when it's all said and done, you will amaze yourself.